What's up guys, I'm Steve Wells and today we are going to be talking about the North Face Vectiv Enduris. So this shoe is from North Face's new lineup of trail shoes. This one is going to be your higher cushion, daily trainer, long run shoe. You also have the Flight Vectiv and the Vectiv Infinite in this lineup. So those are going to be your race day shoes, your kind of faster day shoe, and then your longer mileage shoe. So as usual, I'm not going to go over all the specs of this shoe. They will be down in the description if you're interested. So this is the part of the video where I normally tell you the weight of the shoe in my size, but I can't find my scale. I recently moved, as you can tell by the ugly background behind me, and I'm sure my scale's in a box somewhere. If I find it, I will leave the weight of my size down in the description, so be sure to check down there. While you're down in the description looking for the weight of this shoe, be sure to check out the link to my Patreon as well. Consider becoming a patron. Help me out, help out the channel, help keep me doing what I'm doing. But getting right into it with the Flight Vectiv Endurance. Not Flight Vectiv, that's the other one. But getting right into it with some pros on the Vectiv Enduris. So first pro for me is going to be this cushioning. For what it's meant for, it has a good amount of cushioning for those longer miles. Can definitely use it for easier days on the trail. Just kind of whenever you need a trail shoe that isn't a race day shoe or a fast day shoe. Just whenever you're going out to get some mileage in, this is going to be the shoe from that lineup that you go to. This shoe also has a much more traditional running shoe feel than a lot of trail shoes that I have run in the past, with the kind of snugger midfoot and toe box. With it has a 6mm drop, so it's not super high, but is going to be closer to your Brooks Ghost or your Asics Nimbus, kind of those traditional road running shoes. It's going to be a little bit closer to the feel of what you get in those. Another pro is you can definitely use this on more than just trails. When it comes to the lugs on the bottom, if you can kind of tell, they're not super aggressive. Like if we compare it to something like even like the Olympus here, it's going to be much more aggressive on the outsole, even though these are getting relatively worn down. But it's going to be a little bit more comfortable in terms of lug depth on the road than some other trail shoes might be. So if you're wanting to use one shoe mostly for trails, a little bit for kind of fire roads, and then occasionally take it on the road, I think that this one would be a pretty good option for it. With the amount of cushioning that this shoe has, it actually feels, I would say, relatively fast for the category. Like those Olympus that I just pulled out, that's going to be Ultra's max cushion trail shoe. Definitely feels a lot faster and more responsive than that. Probably not quite as much cushion, but just for the category, for how much cushioning you're getting, I would say this feels a little bit more speedy than something like the Olympus or the Speed Goat or something like that. When it comes to the upper here, you've got some overlays that are going to make it a little more water resistant, can get in a little bit deeper puddles without getting your feet wet, walking through dew and that kind of thing. Also has a good thickness tongue. It's going to be thick enough that you're not going to feel the laces against your feet, but also thin enough that it's not super puffy and just kind of getting in the way of your foot. Also, a weird problem I've been noticing in a good amount of shoes lately is super long tongues that come way up your ankle. Definitely don't have that problem in this shoe, and I don't know why that's ever a problem. When it comes to the colorways in this shoe, I actually really like this one. I know some people don't like white trail shoes because they get dirty, but also I would say any trail shoe is going to get dirty, so you might as well show off that you use them by making them white. They also do come in a couple of other colorways that are a little darker, and I think that are just as cool as this one. So my next pro is the price when it comes to the North Face lineup. So if you really want a North Face brand shoe and don't want to look at other brands that are a little bit lower priced for the same type of shoe, this is probably the one to go with if you're looking for a daily trainer that's not super expensive. The Flight, their race day shoe, is right around $200, and the Infinite is $170. So I would say for kind of what they are, I mean, the Flight is kind of almost reasonable because carbon fiber plate shoes are super expensive. But if you're looking for something affordable just to go out and run in, that you're not racing in necessarily, I would probably go with the Enduris. So that's all the things that I was liking about this shoe when I was running in them. Now getting into some cons. My first con is the rocker in this shoe. It doesn't look like it has a crazy rocker. If you compare it to something like the Speedgoat, I feel like it looks like maybe it has less of a rocker, but when you really put it on and start wearing it, it really just feels like you're just rolling right over your arch. Not kind of that smooth rocker transition like you get in some of Hoka's shoes, or even like the New Balance More or something like that. The Saucony Endorphin Shift. This one is a much more like abrupt rocker, I feel like, especially when you're using it on the road. If you're using it on the trail, I don't notice it nearly as much, and it doesn't feel like as much of a problem for me. I still do notice it, but it's usually when I am using it, you know, through the parking lot, going up to the trailhead, getting on like a bike path to go to a different section of trail or something like that, is when I really notice that I feel like I'm just kind of abruptly tilting forward as I rock through my gait. My next con is these laces, especially for what this shoe is meant for. So these laces are like super thin ribbons. This shoe is not meant to be like your lightweight go fast shoe. I can totally see a lace like this or something even thinner on, you know, the Flight or the Infinite, but that's not what this shoe is meant for. It's meant a little bit more for longer distance comfort. And so I would have liked to see something a little bit thicker in terms of lace that's not going to kind of like press into your foot, that's a little bit stretchier. There's hardly any stretch to these that will give you a little bit better of a lockdown around your midfoot. My next con is not necessarily a con, but just kind of more something to be aware of. Just kind of knowing the shoe's limitations when it comes to the lug depth on the bottom here. Like I was saying, they are relatively shallow, at least they look like it to me, and that makes this shoe a little bit more comfortable on the road if you have to use it in that situation. But when it comes to more slippery surfaces, kind of thicker mud and that kind of thing, I did notice I was having a little bit more trouble than maybe I would in some with more kind of hardcore lugs on the bottom. And my last con is probably the biggest one for me, and that is just that they overall felt much tighter than I would like them to feel on my foot. So through the midfoot, I felt like it was a little too tight. The heel felt fine, but in the toe box, I definitely felt like I wished I had more room out there. Now, yes, I do run in ultras and that kind of thing a lot, so I am used to that wider toe box, but there are lots of shoes that I run in that have more tapered kind of traditional toe boxes that still give you enough room in there. This one felt much too tight through the ball of my foot and was just crushing my toes out there. And I don't have a super wide foot or anything like that. I am a little wider through the midfoot, but when it comes to the ball of my foot, it's not super wide. So that's definitely something else to keep in mind. This shoe, I don't believe, comes in a wide either. So if you have wider feet, definitely feel free to try it on if you have access to it, but you might have to be looking elsewhere for something that might work for you. So will I continue wearing this shoe? Probably not. I don't think it's a bad shoe necessarily, but I definitely do have other shoes that I much prefer over this one. The biggest problems for me were just the tightness. When I was running in them, I was just looking forward to getting them off of my feet. Not because it was painful, but just because I felt like I was so constricted in there. And also the rocker is kind of a big thing for me. I just do not like the feeling of the way that this shoe transitions. So while I'm not going to continue wearing this shoe, that doesn't mean that it's not going to work for lots of other people. This is actually one of my girlfriend's favorite trail shoes right now. She likes that kind of tighter fit. She doesn't have a problem as much as I do with that rocker that's in there. And so this shoe is still going to work for lots of other people, especially if you like a more traditional fitting shoe. This one will feel more like a road shoe in terms of fit and a little bit less like a trail shoe normally fits in my experience. I think if you're running on gravel trails, if you are running on fire roads, if you're going to be doing a little bit of pavement, maybe if you're out west in the US doing some of those kind of smoother, drier trails than we have here on the East Coast, I think that this would be a really good option for that kind of thing. But when it comes to thicker mud, rocks, roots on the East Coast here, I don't think it does as well as some other options out there. But I hope this video was helpful. If it was, be sure to like and subscribe down below. Leave a comment letting me know what I can do to this back wall here to make this space look a little bit better than it looks right now. Right now, we're still kind of unpacking and getting things settled in. So I'm just in a bit of a white box here in the office. So I would love to hear some ideas on that. But until then, I will talk to you guys next week.